homes we live in and how we can care for, preserve, and continue to live in these historic, beautiful homes in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name's Vicki Parker. Would anyone like some saltwater taffy? I know a lot of people had it, but honestly, if you'd like it, I could just pass it around. It's kind of a historic candy to some extent. It's been around for a long time. Do you want to pass that around? Okay.
Hopefully these haven't been around that long.
I got, they're from about 20 years ago only. I'll probably use the, can you hear me if I talk without the microphone, or do you prefer the microphone? All right.
Forgot
I will
to
do
turn it
that.
on, I apologize.
No, it's not turned on. Okay, I'll wait till you turn it on.
I'm gonna sneak behind you over here. Some of our technology is also historic. There we go.
Okay. Oh, yes. Hello. Can everyone hear me?
Oh, yeah, great.
All right. My name's Victoria Parker. People call me Vicki. I'm here with JR, who's the founder and president of American Vintage Home, and Cornelius, who runs our training center. So it's called StarTech, and it's to teach the next generation of the trades. If you don't know this, I will enlighten you. The trades is kind of in a trade drought. There's not a lot of people who know the old way of how things worked. And unfortunately, I actually grew up in the trades. My family, my brother was an electrician for the city of Chicago. And I think that there's a lot of knowledge that's been lost. And I met a little bit about me and how I got involved with American Vintage Home. I'm not a plumber, even though my kids think I am, because I talk about it all the time. I love history. I absolutely love the idea that we would be in a place like this, and it's 100-year-old plus, and that nobody in this room today was here when it was built, but yet the architecture survives, and it tells us a story, and if we don't preserve that, we're going to lose that story. However, these houses were brilliantly built, especially for Chicago winters and Chicago summers. When you think about why architecture was done the way it was done, we really had a very cool thing happen. Obviously, we had the Chicago fire, which is not cool, but it happened, and it brought some amazing architects to the area because we happened to be on a port, and everybody that time traveled by boat. So once word came here, we had all these great architects. We have this brilliant design of homes. But if I knew 15 years ago what I know now, I would have bought a historic home, being so passionate about Chicago history, but I did not. I bought a cookie cutter house that it's like falling apart. It's got all these problems. American Vintage comes all the time to my house. I bought that because I didn't know what could be done, and I was too scared to take that jump to actually try to renovate something, even though that was my passion. So I met JR and my counterpart now, Abby, at a conference, and we started talking about American Vintage Home and how they're JR is very, very passionate about not only quality and being able to preserve something the way it was. I thought it was interesting, what a niche. Like if you're a plumbing, heating, cooling company, it's a very small niche to be working on older homes. So of course I was interested in why they did that, and being that I loved history, they didn't know that they wanted me to be involved, but I wanted to bring the why to the community. So that's why I'm working with them. And just another thing, my dad he was a photographer for the city of Chicago, and his job was to take pictures of buildings right before they were going to be torn down. So my basement was flooded with all these beautiful buildings, and I'd say, "What's that building?" He's like, "It's not there anymore." So, for me, I think I kind of grew up in that. And my great-grandfather owned the Parker House in Oak Park. So if anyone's ever been there, I was on a tour not too long ago, and I know the owner now. So I think it was like kind of a part of me to become, interested in architecture. But as far as older homes go, like I said, they're brilliantly designed, but they need to be modernized. We have to be able to have them live with us. They have to be able to function with us. And being someone that was very naive in how this worked, I decided that it would be a really good idea to bring this to the community. With Cornelius being one of our experts, they opened the academy so that they can pass on that knowledge, which is very similar to how architecture worked back then. If you can imagine, they had no technology, they didn't have computers, they didn't have ChatGPT to build these phenomenal homes, they had experience and they had knowledge passed down to them. And if we don't continue to do that, we're going to lose it. And people will end up with things in their homes they don't need. So in order to kind of get everyone into the mindset of where I was at, I have been working with a little bit of video. I was telling them earlier, I don't love AI too much, but I think that some of the technologies can be harnessed for good. So I did that. I used some of the technology from AI to use some of this presentation. And one of the things that I did was a little video, just about 1.5 minutes long, to kind of bring you mentally back to the idea of what houses were 100 years ago, sort of. Let me see. You said to put it here for the sound?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to do that.
There you go.
All right.
Let's
Let's see if this works. It was once farmland, as far as the eye could see, as they would say. Does anybody own a bungalow? They're absolutely fascinating. Yeah, let people do the additions.
Goes too fast.
I know, I could watch it a few times. Oh, goodness. That was just, I always like the thought of like getting everyone on the same place with things. I have 2 little kids and I force history down their throats constantly. I took them to Gettysburg. We walked Pickett's Charge so, on the 3rd of July of all things. I always tell them that his architecture specifically is the closest thing we have to real-time travel, because it's the only thing that you can touch that somebody 100 years ago touched the exact same spot and maybe thought possibly the same exact thing. So, you know, for me, preserving that and being able to bring my kids into a place like this or go on a history tour is incredibly important. So you could probably guess I am very passionate about this. But you know, we love older homes. That's part of our slogan. They were built to last. But the reason they were built, if you are deciding that you have something in your home that's not functioning, and this is where we really are passionate, and I'm going to go through a little bit of a story of why things were built the way that they were built from more of the history side of things. And then I'm going to let Cornelius talk a little bit about what we can do about those things functionally. Because what ends up happening a lot of times is you might have a problem in your house and you get someone who doesn't have as much experience in that particular area, and they do the wrong thing, and they end up tearing up all the walls in the process. So I don't know if anyone's ever had that experience. Who has an older home? An older meaning before 1970.
Oh, yeah.
It's my goal. One day, my husband and I want to eventually get an older home. So they can use improvements, obviously. Understanding why they were built the way they were built is a very important part of how we decide to move forward with them. And that's what we kind of want to bring to you guys. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about as far as what older homes do and don't have. The 3 that I want to focus on today, and we can, you know, at the end of this, we're obviously going to open this up to questions. We want the questions to be, you know, pretty general to all of this, but at the end, if you have something very specific for your house and you want to talk to these guys, you can. We'll save some time for that. I'm just going to breeze through some of the most common things that we see that people complain about, or maybe they don't know about, and maybe you're going to walk away being like, shoot, I didn't think about that one. You know, insulation or lack of insulation, proper insulation. Aging plumbing systems. I have a fun little video that I made on that because my mom could not understand what galvanized pipe was. So I made a video mostly for her. And then, you know, trying to retrofit homes. Obviously, they don't have spaces for ductwork, or sometimes they can makeshift a way to do it. but lack of airflow. And airflow and insulation really kind of go hand in hand in this talk, so I'm going to kind of start with those and pass this over to Cornelius when I don't know what we could do about the issue. But I have a trivia question, and I'm going to tell you I didn't know what any of this stuff was. So I have a trivia question for you that I learned. Not everywhere in the world has basements, right? In Florida and things like this. But everywhere in Chicago does. And does anybody know why?
Flooding. Yeah, so we can catch water.
That's a very good
It's
good
like a
question.
cool space.
What's that?
A cool space.
It is a cool space. Storage is a wonderful side effect to this.
Children.
Put them in there.
Laundry room, furnace.
Tornadoes is actually a good one too. This is not the original reasons, but they're all.
Yeah.
That's another reason to have it. A good reason to have it is not why we build it. Anyone else?
Goobers.
Huh?
Goobers. Got a bunch of potatoes and stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean that again because it's cool down there. That was a happy side effect.
Root cellar. Okay, root cellar.
It's so funny. Go ahead.
Well, in Chicago, they raised the street level, so the houses that were there. were built-
But why does every single house have a basement?
Why does every single?
Every single house. So it is interesting because
Not mid-century modern homes.
Does it have to do with the foundation? No.
do you want to talk about this?
Well, yeah, the foundation, we are in a state, and we have a pretty deep frost line. So we have to dig foundation really deep so your house doesn't move. So if we go too shallow, give it a few years and your house is gonna start creaking, cracking, moving, and it's gonna get pushed out by the frost line. So our frost line is about 42 inches in Illinois, so we have to go below that. So since we're already digging it up, putting a foundation, might as well utilize the space for potatoes.
So yeah, if you don't dig a certain inches deep, what happens is the cooling, the freezing temperatures make everything contract and then it relaxes, and that's called a frost heave. And the frost heave shifts the foundation. Eventually, you end up with. And again, like, how did they know this? It was just experience and knowledge passed down. There was nobody like Googled it, you know. So I always think that that's a very cool thing. But yeah, basements of course became incredibly functional. In fact, like the first time I went to Florida and rented a house, I was like looking for the basement, and I'm going in every single closet, and I'm like, "Where's the basement? Where am I going to put my kids to play?" And they're like, "Well, we don't have a basement." And I'm like, I didn't even think of it. I didn't even think that there were places that didn't have basements, but that's me. You know, so. Basements weren't a luxury thing, but of course, because it had to be there, it absolutely became a place to put the potatoes and to make the place for coal and you know, storage and food, because somebody said it, I think you said it, basements are very cool. And they're cool because they're underground. And this has another secondary interesting effect, and I would be incredibly impressed if anyone knows this physics term. Essentially, it's a physics effect. It's something that happens because you have a basement. Does anyone know what happens when cool air comes into a basement? What it's called? I wouldn't have known either. I wouldn't have known. What?
Condensation.
That's another thing that happens. Yeah. It's called the stack effect, and this is where the stack effect, S-T-A-C-K, stack effect. And it's important to understand this. It's important for everybody to understand this, because this is why homes were built the way that they were built. So heat rises, and it has to escape somewhere. So attics, I'm not talking about every single home ever built, but mostly speaking, architecturally speaking, the attics were the place that heat escaped, and cool air entered in through the basement. And that pulled that cool air up through the house. So before a time when there was mechanical airflow, this was a natural way for air to flow through your home, cleaning it out of all that off-gassing of chemicals and things like this, or the soot. This was a way to keep the house clean and breathing. We talk a lot about efficiency, and Cornelius is going to speak more on this later. Efficiency of a home, efficient. We wanted efficient because cost of energy is a lot. But back then it wasn't, it was cheap. So to have a home naturally do what we currently pay for it to do is a very good thing. Unfortunately, when cool air rises, it brings with it a lot of the moisture. And that becomes a problem with a lot of people in homes because where there's moisture, there's bugs. And if you have bugs in your basement, it's probably because you have moisture down there. Where there's water, there's life. If you have no bugs, there's no water down there. But if you have bugs, that means that you have some moisture down there. And the bugs themselves aren't a problem. The problem becomes that there's dust mites. And it's the dust mites' poop that causes the allergies and all the problems. And if you don't have that good airflow, and you've worked very hard to make your house very efficient, then that's all being contained, which we'll talk about more later. So, if you have a house that is naturally breathing on purpose, you need a mega boiler to keep up with negative 10-degree weather in the winter. So coal-fired boilers that were introduced in the early 1900s became incredibly popular because coal was very cheap. You didn't have to worry about quantity. You could burn as much as you wanted. That wasn't really the problem. What you needed was a home that was reliably warm, because if it did go out and it was negative 10, there was not really much of a backup outside of maybe your fireplace. So having something that was massive, something that could make a ton of energy very, very quickly was very advantageous in these homes. And one of the things that I think is really cool, and some of the students of StarTech shared with me, is how often they go in and see these old boilers from this original time that have been converted now to burn gas. And I'm actually going to pass this over to Cornelius for me because I want him to just kind of speak about this process of what happens when you take a coal-burning boiler and you convert it. Some of the good things about that and some of the problems that come up. Does anyone have a really old boiler?
Not currently.
You convert it. Or, I mean, a converted one, I should ask. A converted one. So here, I want you just, if you don't mind.
Well, so converting a boiler from coal to, first it was oil. We would burn oil in them, and then gas came along, and now we're burning gas in it. In reality, that didn't increase efficiency by any little bit. We're just burning different fuel at the same efficiency rate. So if your boiler was 50% efficient, basically 50 cents out of every dollar you spend for heating your home, 50 cents will go for the house, 50 cents to heat up Evanston, out the chimney. So nothing really changed with these boilers. Efficiency really comes from better equipment and being able to insulate a home to keep your heat inside, which is also a big problem with these older homes because they were never designed to work that way. They were designed to breathe. And many contractors now come along and they're like, okay, let's make these homes efficient. They over-insulate, they pack everything in, and we still have the stack effect that we have to deal with, and nobody addresses that. Yeah, so the static effect is one thing. We're moving the heat from the basement all the way to, through the attic, and that's how it escapes. But the biggest issue about that is it's not really the temperature, it's more of moisture comes from the ground. Summertime, morning, you walk out outside and you look at the grass and you see just the dew everywhere. Where did that water come from? Well, it didn't just appear, it came from the ground. So now our homes are buried in the ground. They're absorbing the moisture, and the stack effect basically brings all that humidity into the home, and it has to escape. If your home doesn't breathe, you get mold, you get fungus, you get bacteria, you get, what are those little silverfish, and dust mites. Dust mites are the...
Cave crickets.
What's it?
Cave crickets.
Oh yeah, those too. Yeah. I hear those every now and then. We go into someone's basement and you just hear a cricket in the corner. It's like, okay, yeah, you've got moisture going on. So yeah, if making a home efficient on older homes, if you don't do it the right way, it's gonna have a negative effect on your home and on your health, because now you're keeping all that in. You're not ventilating, so then we have to do something extra about that.
And I know everyone in Evanston is into health, or at least a lot of people that I've met through the Bike the Rig Bridge and all these other events that we do. And one thing that Cornelius and I were talking about, insulation and over efficiency is something that I know a lot about. My background was actually healthcare, and I talk a lot about the toxicity of what we put into our lives and our environment and that. But one thing that we don't really think about is the process of off-gassing. So every mattress that you bring into your home, every pillowcase, every item of clothing, all of these have chemicals, fire retardants, all things that have a function, but they over time, over the course of years, are kind of pulling some of those chemicals into the air. And if you make your house so efficient that it's no longer breathing and you have no other way to have that air flow through your house, then we're bringing a lot of that in and just breathing it. And so, some of the studies that they talk about is that your home could actually be more polluted than the air outside. And it's an interesting thing because being in healthcare and then talking to Cornelius, I hadn't really put those together too much. I mean, I do, and we open our windows all the time, but it was really when we were putting together these slides that I started thinking about all the different things in our environment, and we talk a little bit about that at the end. But obviously today we do have solutions for better efficiency, something that fits the space, as far as if you have the money to just change something and you don't want to be putting 50 cents into the environment, there are tons of options available, and having somebody that you can talk to about that is really, really important.
Hey, Vicki, I have a quick question.
Yeah, of course.
So I just want to ask anyone here, how much more polluted do you feel your air in your home is than outside? What would you guess?
Well, I live
How many more times? One time?
It depends on
I
what
live
the
near Lake
outside
Stadium,
is.
so.
It is true, but on average, what would you say?
It's probably 50% more polluted.
It's
So much
7
so.
times. And that's kind of scary. And as we were talking about before, the older homes were not very insulated, back in 1890, 1900s. But the interesting thing is that the engineers that designed these older homes, they designed all the radiators that are put into these homes to have a situation where they designed them so that they could open up windows by about this tall to allow cool air or fresh air to come in even in winter, because they were concerned at that time about the quality of air. Now just imagine, now we're building these unbelievable homes that are super insulated, windows super insulated that will not allow any air in.
Or don't even open.
Right? They don't open. And
Seal them up, yeah.
and people are becoming sick. And the interesting thing is that we lost sight of that over the years because everybody was all worried about efficiency, keeping costs down, which is very important. But what's the point of doing that if we're all going to get sick? Yes?
I live in a 1920s courtyard building, and the person that owns the building decided to replace all of the windows. They were original, or at least super old, and they blessed them. They replaced them with double hung. So I'm on the 3rd floor of a walk-up, and the heat rises from the other 2 floors. I can just drop the top on my windows and have all that air move. And I'm so grateful to the
Right.
owners for installing double hung windows, because a lot of people don't even know what that was for and don't use it properly. They seal it up with paint and you can't drop the top.
That is correct. And it's great that you have that ability, because like I said, if your air is that polluted in the home, and as Vicki was saying, it's from off-gassing of carpets, rugs, paintings, upholstery, furniture, anything, glues, you name it. And we lose sight of that. So I just wanted to kind of let you guys know that it's not all about efficiency sometimes, and sealing up a house just ironclad so there's no leakage. It creates sometimes more problems. And now when that happens, we have to come in, and now we need to bring in fresh air into the home. and there are systems in there that make that more efficient, but it's still now an extra system you need to put in for your health. So I just wanted to kind of pass that on. Sorry, guys.
No,
Actually, I'm glad you brought up windows, because who's going to go home and open their windows tonight? The other thing, obviously, most people know with older homes is that a lot of them were original single pane windows. And the putting in of double pane windows is very cool. And again, this is one of those silly things that I never really thought about. Air is a phenomenal insulator. So that little tiny bit of air between those windows. Does anyone have single pane windows? You do. So one of the things that a lot of people do, or even if you have double pane, but it's an older version, and not because you had said that some of them are now gas, right? There's a gas between it to make it even more insulated. I remember when I was a kid, I'd always put my hand up to the window in my house when there was frost, because we had single pane, and I could make a hand print, and I thought it was so cool, but not so efficient, right? So my in-laws still have single pane, and they do put up one of those big plastic barriers just to create that amount of airspace that works as a phenomenal insulator. That is something you can do. But something JR just brought up, and I'm going to pass this over to you, so be prepared. The radiators under the windows. That is something I always thought was very cool. You know, around the time of the Spanish flu, this was a big thing. Everyone wanted to crack their window open. And there's an interesting effect that happens. This was an intentional design, as JR mentioned. They purposely put these here so that you could open your windows. But I'm going to let you talk about why that is so important.
Well, I mean, most of your temperature most of the heat you will lose at the windows. They're the least insulated. And the insulation was never the goal of these builds. It was always breathability. How quickly can we dry moisture from in between walls if it gets in there and not create mold and things of that sort? So putting these huge radiators was big. You could literally, in most winters, you could just open these windows fully and still be warm inside. And that's also kind of like we were talking about the stack effect. This is what's called a air curtain. You would see this kind of like in grocery stores. I don't know if you ever paid attention. See, I pay attention to that stuff. But when you're walking in the winter into a grocery store, you sometimes feel like this gush of wind right over you. That's an air curtain. They're basically throwing, temperature down the door to create a barrier, so whatever is going on outside doesn't come inside. And that's how these were built. They were oversized on purpose. The homes were not insulated, so this could produce as much heat as possible to create the air curtain, to create air circulation in the room, because heat rises, cold air falls down, so you get natural breathing of the home. None of that is going on right now. So yeah, when you have an old home like this, you do have to take certain precaution before you decide, hey, let's make this like as insulated as my Stanley thermos, that can, you put a tea in there and it lasts for 24 hours, you pour the tea out 24 hours later, and it's still burning hot. We do make those homes nowadays, but now, again, you have to know what you're doing not to poison yourself with the VOCs or bring in too much moisture and keep it in the home and start growing bugs and other things.
So the fact these old stucco homes had no insulation, it was just stucco lath, air, and
And the air was the insulator.
The air was the insulator.
The air is, till this day, we use air as an insulator on everything. Every piece of insulation, it's not really the material that insulates, it's the air that we can trap in it. If we can trap air from moving, that's our best insulator. So fiberglass, it just holds air that doesn't move. That's all it's doing. So if we can get basically poofy stuff that doesn't allow wind to go through, we're good.
So I'm going to ask a question. So I know a lot of you may have forced air, heat.
No.
Okay, good.
Radiators, that's
Radiators. So
windows.
let me ask you a question. What's so great about radiators as opposed to scorched air, heat?
They're quiet.
Quiet? Yes.
More
What else?
even heat.
Pardon?
The heat's more even.
Heat's more even, absolutely.
It doesn't dry out the environment.
Correct. Doesn't dry out the environment.
I can dry some of my laundry on them.
What else?
You can put your beach tchotchkes
So
on.
it doesn't,
It works. What else?
radiators don't actually heat the air, they heat the items in the building.
Correct. They give you that warm, cozy feeling. But
If I may ask, does anybody still have that old big radiator with a bread warmer in it?
No, that's-
We have pans to put water
Yeah.
on top if
You-
you
you
want
have one of
moisture.
those?
We have pans on top.
Right. That's what they did back then.
Yes.
That's how they got humidity into homes. But
Right.
I've done that.
it's a beautiful thing.
But the air is
I-
not a good
no.
way to move temperature around. It never was a good way
The
to move
air is not.
temperature around. And anything that's in your ducts is now flying around your house. So whatever collects in there when they're not being used is getting blown into your face. Plus, it's often delivered high, and heat doesn't need to be delivered
Right.
high. It's just a silly system.
Thank you. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yes.
I have one complaint though. When I moved into the house,
Okay.
we had a hydronic system to circulate the water to the radiators.
Right.
No pump.
They won't do that anymore. The new boilers are so efficient that they require a pump,
That's correct.
and the hydronic system didn't require a pump.
Right. You had an old gravity system that basically heated up a big boiler like she showed here, and basically through gravity heat being water being lighter, hot water being lighter, it starts going up into the radiators very slowly. It's beautiful, and it worked great when it was with coal.
It worked great with gas.
Right, it worked great. And what a lot of people have done, which is really sad, like you guys are all very smart in this room because you all have radiators. Some people say, I really don't like that radiator. It's ugly. It's not in a good spot.
Beautiful.
Well, that's correct. I think they're beautiful, but a lot of other people say, I'd like to put some furniture there. I'd like to do this. And a lot of people that weren't as smart as the people in this room decided, you know what? I think I'm going to get rid of my radiators and put in scorched air. I call it scorched air, sorry.
Huge mistake.
But yes, and here's what happened. After they did it, they go, oh my God, my house feels uncomfortable. I feel drafts like I never felt before.
And dry.
Yeah, I feel dry. I feel air movement, which is making me feel cold. Well, when the boiler shuts off, you have all this huge amount of water in the system, and it takes these old homes that would leak like sieves and make it cozy because those radiators would heat for hours even after the boiler shuts off. Forced air, it's either on or off. And when it's off, there's no heat coming out. So all of you here basically feel good about going home. I guess we have to wait another 4 or 5 months for it to get cold again, and you get to enjoy that really cozy feel. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. You have it in my house. I have what I think is the best thing is I have cast iron baseboard radiators, and you haven't mentioned those yet.
Okay.
But that doesn't get in the way of anything. You know what I mean? It's you don't have big radiators under the windows. Or
Very good. That I would tell you that that's awesome. Cast iron baseboard is nice because it puts a nice barrier of heat all along the exterior walls, which that was the next step. But if you had gravity systems that didn't need a pump like you were talking about, that didn't flow through those cast iron baseboards very well. But that's something that came about years later. And some of the people that decided not to do forced air and went to the baseboard were a lot smarter.
When we bought the house, in the fall when it started to get cool, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to take a week to warm up. We turned it on, and in half an hour it was cozy.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Amazing.
It is great. It is great if you've never experienced it before. Yes?
So I believe radiators heat through two separate processes. They heat through radiation, hence the name. They also heat through convection, so it's the air moving through the fins.
Correct. That is exactly correct. It's doing both things because it's like, if you're getting heated by the sun, you could go outside and it may be really cold out, but when the sun hits you, you feel warm, and obviously the sun is radiating heat upon you. But with convection, the heat's also rising, but it's doing it kind of gently, like you don't feel it. Like forced air doesn't work that way. And now in some of the homes, you'll find radiant heat in the floors, that's pretty good. I mean, be honest with you.
That's deluxe.
That's yes. When you get, especially in a bathroom, when you get up in a nice cold evening to walk around a nice toasty floor, that is awesome. That's living. Anyways, yes.
Yeah, we bought a house that was built in 1898,
Awesome.
but then it was moved in 1925. And when we bought it, it had radiators, but I realized after we bought it, there was clear evidence that they used to have ducts. And these radiators were actually, you could tell they were put in later. Some of the pipes were exposed, some of them were in funny places where you couldn't open something. But so, I mean, did they start out doing forced air back in the 1800s?
It wasn't forced
well,
air.
It wasn't forced,
It was gravity.
Gravity, yeah.
They did, yes. They made these big, what they call octopus. I'm sure you guys have seen them. They're these massive, right, and they're massive, like a big round box. And off of them come out like 10 to 12 inch round diameter ducts. And that feeds these big vents that come through the floor. And that's much better than the, what I call scorched air heat. But still, it doesn't come close to the radiator heat or radiant heat. Yes?
What's the difference between a hot water radiator and a steam?
Good question. Basically, one is, they're both really the same. They're radiators, but one, you have a steam boiler that creates it's like a kettle that creates steam and sends steam through pipes. That is something that kind of was done years ago, back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. They put a lot of the steam in because it was one way to get heat very quickly from the boiler to some faraway places where maybe gravity systems, hot water systems wouldn't work. But hot water, all it does is, instead of now the boiler just being halfway full of water and creating that steam in the system, hot water heat, all the radiators are full of water along with the boiler. And all that happens is water circulating through those radiators and through the boiler.
But doesn't steam heat, they usually had a little thing at the end that made noise?
Yes, those are the hissers.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that basically, the reason that those vents were there is when you heat up the boiler that starts to steam, you need to get air out of the radiators, and so that steam can go into the radiator, and thus you would get heat into them. And sometimes those vents would go bad, and people would call up and say, "I don't have heat." Well, that was the reason. Yes.
So I just want to add something to, I just
Yes.
moved out of a building that was steam radiator, and we had every unit put in new air vents. I've not heard any hissing all year.
Okay,
So
that's
you need to balance the system.
that's correct, because what you can do in steam
Also,
systems,
it's a 28 unit building.
right, in steam systems, what you have is, if you can, just like you said, perfect, when you replace steam vents, the furthest away radiators need to get rid of the air faster, and the ones closest to the boiler need to get rid of it slower, because you're going to drive them crazy. So what they have is, on these steam vents, all they're little orifices that allow air faster to go out of the radiator or slower. And by doing that, you will make everything even in the house, as opposed to some rooms just ridiculously hot and some ridiculously cold. Yes?
Doesn't, with steam heat, doesn't it take a lot more energy to, I mean, heating up water is one thing, but to turn it into steam takes a lot of energy.
100%. Steam is probably about 20% more expensive to heat with than hot water. Some homes, we can convert the systems from steam to hot water, and now they can get a very efficient boiler, as well as get the savings from going from steam to hot water. And with steam, you get sudden blasts of heat. I mean, to a point where it knocks you out of the room almost, it feels like sometimes. Hot water is just much more even. Yes?
So to convert steam to hot water, do you need a two-pipe system or can it work in a one-pipe system?
If you could figure that one out, I'd love it. No.
You're hired.
You have to have, well, let's say this. We have done it with one pipe, but we had to add one. So it was a very expensive thing, but somebody really wanted to do it. And they said, we don't want to give up our beautiful radiators. Can you make it work? And I said, can you deal with some extra pipes? And they said, yes. So we were able to fish the pipes in between the walls and feed the radiators, and they were just tickled pink that they got it done the way they did. And but that was we only did one like that, because that's not something that most people normally do. But you're right, one pipe and two pipe. If you have one pipe, you generally, it's not economical to do it. Yes?
In our apartment, when we first moved in, those radiators would bang. Like, I always knew when the boiler turned on because it was 3 o'clock in the morning and you could hear the bang. And so I had the landlord come in and do whatever they did, and after about 4 or 5 efforts, they said, look, we're just going to open up all these vents on all of the radiators because they can't have different openings. You can't open this one halfway and the other one fully. They all have to be fully open, and you gotta leave them alone and never touch them again.
You know, I'm going to get you to come up here and talk about this. So what you were hearing...
Talk about the valves. Talk about the valves.
Yeah, with a one-pipe steam system, you cannot throttle down the radiator valve to reduce the heat. Because what you do is you trap water in the radiator. When the steam goes into the radiator, it begins to condensate. And if you close the valve, you won't allow the condensate to get back into the boiler. And what happens, when steam finally gets back into the radiator, tries to get back into the radiator, what happens when steam hits water? Knocks like crazy. It's like somebody banging, like this guy banging his pipe or hammer against the pipe. It drives people crazy.
Yeah.
And that's what happens a lot of times in these older systems, is you get this banging because all that's happening, and sometimes pipes sag, and if it hits a pocket of water, it just, as soon as the steam hits it, it flashes it has a controlled like explosion that occurs. And that happens a lot in these older homes where pipes, the hangers start to not do as good of a job of hanging, and some of them have come off, and it just creates this problem. So yeah, so steam is...
That's a one-pipe system?
That, even in a two-pipe system, it'll do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So again, in a two-pipe system, the other reason that it could get banging...
No. I just don't want you to jump.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
I get excited about this stuff, okay? There's a few things I get excited about as I get older.
This is why Vicky coerced him to come over here?
No, she didn't coerce me. I thought this place was... I've never been in here. I've lived here all my life. Yeah. And I don't know, I was scared to come in here maybe because it just looks so ominous, you know, so amazingly beautiful in here. But I walked around and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is unreal. But I couldn't, she wouldn't let me. No.
They've done work here, though. American Vintage has done work here, and in some of the Frank Lloyd Wright homes too. I mean, that's the obvious ones I always recommend when people ask me, you know, and so. Because I do think, to this point, like going back to even when I was looking at homes and I hear about these problems, if you do get the wrong contractor and they'll say like, well, you could tear out radiators and put in something new and then you won't have that banging. Mm-hmm. And people don't know that there are solutions. That was actually one of the things that I realized. So many people we've talked to that say, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't get rid of this system, but I had somebody come in and tell me that was the best option.
Well, and I'm going to say this. It's really exciting, you know, when I get a chance to talk to people that are exactly like you are, interested in this stuff, because like my kids don't really like hearing this talk about this stuff. My wife says, just shut it off, would you? But what's great here is that Vicky, she absolutely loves this stuff, more than I do even. I mean, she's like always talking about this stuff and just so excited. It's like a kid in a candy store, you know? And then, you know, when you're also working with Cornelius here, he's just the same way with training and teaching everyone like some of these things that lost art of this heating, because a lot of this stuff is not taught anymore. They're all talking about scorched air. And yes, you need to know that, but everybody knows that. Not everyone knows this. Yes?
People that do HVAC not understand the hot water plumbing systems?
You think that they would, wouldn't you?
No,
I would tell you this, that one of the reasons that we did our academy was because we would get people that had 20 years of experience, but it wasn't all good experience, unfortunately. We got to a point where we just said, you know what, if we don't train our own, we're never going to get anywhere. Because we love older homes. This is not something that, you know, we didn't call ourselves American Vintage Home just because, you know,
cool.
It sounded cool. We did it because we love older homes and we knew a lot about it. And there's a love there. And when you have passion, as you all know, you can move mountains.
So what's the other reason radiators not?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. So, first of all, what type of heat do you have? Do you have steam or hot water?
Steam.
Okay. So steam, there's two reasons. One is that sometimes the valve inside is not operative. And sometimes it's stuck in a certain position, which is not allowing the moisture to get back into the boilers. And the other reason is because of sagging pipes. The other reason is that sometimes people don't pipe the boiler properly, and they throw a lot of water into the pipes without getting because you want dry steam going up into the heating system. And if you don't do that, you're throwing all this water up there, you're just setting yourself up for the 4th of July in your house. Yes?
The radiators also need to be pitched, especially in the steam system.
Correct.
To the valve so that can drain out.
100%. You're 100% correct. You need them pitched, especially one pipe. They need to be pitched, and if they're not pitched, and everything, when we say pitch, there has to be a slope back so that the water can drain out of the radiator. If it doesn't, it's a trap. And you're going to get banging like crazy, and it will never go away.
What I want to do is just...
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I only because
I don't know if anyone's on a time limit. So for people who have to be out at a certain time,
we'll stay here as long as you
we're
want.
going to stay afterwards for some more questions, because this stuff is very, very cool.
Just in general, we have a 100-year-old Foursquare. We still have our radiators. We added air conditioning. And now we're kind of thinking, what else is next, or what else should we, you want to maintain the history of the house, but you also want to make it livable. And I'm just curious, kind of, what are the projects or warnings you would have about making other changes, whether it's bathrooms or anything else?
Well, so that's a very good, that is the exact question for right when we're done with this. We're going to kind of do a little bit of a, just globally, what can you do? And then the very specific ones, we're going to have these guys stay around to answer those.
Be more than happy.
No, I'm going to move on just in case people do have to, head out. I want them to hear a little bit more just about, things like piping and stuff like that, a little bit to the plumbing. One thing I want to bring up, and we'll talk about this afterwards if anyone does anyone have Space Pack? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Space Pack was until I met American Vintage. But, this is a very interesting concept because, of course, when homes were built without ductwork, these systems were designed then to solve those problems, which is very, very cool. JR is, American Vintage is like the biggest.
We're the largest installers in the entire country.
Yeah, so they do a lot of Space Pack, and it removes gives 30% moisture,
Damn
more
good,
moisture
yes.
than traditional forced air. So it's a very cool thing, and I've seen it a lot. They're very discreet. You know, there are solutions, right? That's what we want to kind of talk about at the end. If you have a certain amount of money that you're going to put into your home, what is the best way to use it? What is the best way to go forward with your home? But I want to just really quickly, because then we're going to get into this, I want to talk about one other thing that a lot of people have. Galvanized pipe is interesting. Obviously, these guys are going to talk a bit about it. When I was explaining to my mom what galvanized pipe was, I had this concept that we were going to put a little video together to explain it to her. So I have this video. It's only about a minute long, and then we'll talk about galvanized pipe. Let's see if it'll work.
Hi, I'm your old galvanized pipe. Back in my day, I was revolutionary. Strong steel with a fancy zinc interior coating, built to last. But now, I'm showing my age in a few ways, and a lot of older homes still have pipes just like me. The truth is, it turns out that fancy coating doesn't last forever, and I rust from the inside out, slowly closing up, which can mess with your water pressure and even your water quality. So if your water flow is getting weak, or it's coming out looking a little more like diluted orange juice, it might not be you, it's me.
I was particularly interested, so just to talk about technology, that is my voice, altered. My old galvanized pipe. And so when we're talking about like health, which is something I think a lot about, and how you can deal with some of these problems, galvanized pipe is something that they see a lot. They've given me pieces so that I can show it to people, and because obviously it has a lot to do with water pressure, but mostly the water quality is what I think of. All that sediment getting into your water and little bits of debris over time, that's going directly into your system and it's going onto your body. So there are things you can do. So I'm going to pass this over to Cornelius or JR just to talk about some of the things you can do today so that they can open this up for some questions.
Oh yeah, so well, go ahead and talk about the galvanized pipe.
covered like 6 different
Sorry,
things.
I'm trying.
Well, okay, so a lot of homes still do have galvanized pipe. Anybody still has that? Have you seen that in your home? Yeah. They do have an expiration date. And the thing with galvanized pipe, we don't ever want to push anybody into, you got to repipe your whole home. But if you've noticed places that water is starting to seep or drip, or you see some rusting on connections on like the threaded parts, you're close to the end of life there with that pipe. And it's either you're going to replace it on your terms, or the terms will be given to you when the pipe just fails, and then you just have to do it. It was a great idea when they came out, and that was the only thing we had, around those days. Galvanized pipe, it was great technology. It lasted for as many years as they promised it's going to last. But it's about time, just like in that video. Now we replace piping with mostly copper. The issue with galvanized pipe is, when you mix water and oxygen together, the steel will just rust. And that's exactly what water has. Water is full of oxygen. Well, especially, we're pushing it from the city fresh, it's oxygenated, it's running through those pipes, you will corrode it inside out. So on the outside of the pipe, you see nothing. It looks beautiful, but on the inside, it's starting to become super soft, and it's starting to leak. So eventually, you're gonna have to replace them. Right now, we do repipes with copper. That's the next best thing. The next best thing everybody's telling us is PEX tubing, which personally, I don't know, it's a plastic pipe. They tell us don't drink from plastic bottles, and yet, replacing pipes with plastic. So most of the country is covered in PEX tubing already. Because we're in Illinois and Chicago and the area, big city, we have unions, they don't allow that. I mean, it's also, to make sure that there is enough work out there, it's harder to pipe something in copper than in a plastic pipe that just you pull through. One person can repipe the entire house in PEX tubing in a day. Copper is going to take you a week or two. So unions kind of hold that down for us, and which is a good thing.
Isn't there also a concern about if your building catches on fire, that the plastic gives off, when it burns, it gives off toxic fumes?
you know, at that point, I think everything's gonna give up those symptoms. But yes, they do melt. They do give off the, you know, like whatever VOCs come off from burning plastic. But it's mostly. I don't know if you've ever been to like out of state and you can like you drink some water out of the tap and it tastes different. Yeah. That's the PEX tubing. So don't tell me it doesn't have something in it.
So we're about to get rid of our galvanized pipe in the base and under the kitchen sink and put in copper. But there's more galvanized pipe I can't see, I'm sure.
So a good start would be start from the bottom. Do what you can. If you have a reputable contractor, they can actually shoot the pipe up into those certain cavities. You can get to a lot of places even going vertically. As long as there's access from the basin, we can get to most of the pipe. Whatever's left, okay, it's one of those, it's up to you. We could leave it, or we can open up some walls, fix that, and then you're good for forever.
And then how about your lead pipe?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one you have to do.
I thought there was a federal law that all lead pipe has to be replaced by
Yes.
2035.
Not sure exactly what the timeline is.
It's pretty much that way. They're phasing. They have certain phases going on that they're putting together programs for different areas to get the lead taken out, because obviously lead's a problem. Yes.
But that's only for the municipal system into your house. If you have lead pipe in your house, that is yours.
That's yours. Yes.
Yeah, that is your responsibility.
But you won't have, the only thing normally you'll find is if it's coming, the lead is just coming in right from the outside through the house. It'll come through your foundation or through the floor, and you'll see a little lead. After that, it's all generally galvanized, so you don't have to worry about anything else. Now, some people that don't want to wait till 2035, 2040, what have you, that is something that they're taking on their own. Now, you can also add water filtration if you don't want to take that big cost of spending the money to replace the line from the street into your home.
I thought that was mandatory, that we all had to do that.
What's that? To get rid of the line?
The lead
You will over time.
Yeah.
But let's say you don't want to right now expend the resources. There are whole house water filtration systems that you can add to your home that will remove lead. And that's something that if you do have that, I would strongly recommend that you do that, because obviously that water is not necessarily safe to be drinking.
I mean, you know, even looking at lead is one problem, but drinking water out of a tap, it's not what it used to be. My understanding 50, some years ago, where water quality, we say Chicagoland water is very clean. Yes, it doesn't have bacteria, but that's the only thing it doesn't have. Why? Because we chlorinate it as much as the pool water. If you test your water at home right now with a pool sampler, you're gonna see it's so chlorinated just as much as the public pool.
But you can get rid of that if you just let it stand, right?
No, well,
To a degree.
I would tell you this, that we have a kit that will change the color if your water's chlorinated. This is really strange. You stick your finger in the water, chlorinated water, and within seconds, the chlorine's gone. You are the filter.
Oh, really? What?
I get a glass of water, put my finger
Glass
in.
So what we do
Does
is,
it go into your finger then?
And into your body. What's your bloodstream?
so the point that I'm trying to make is, I think Cornelius brings up a really important point. If you're concerned about water quality because of chlorine, and chlorine creates, and you should read about it, a lot of health maladies, go to, the website is EWG, and you will be able to tell what our water is like in Evanston. And I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
What's that?
Is it okay?
I guess it's okay. It
It
depends.
passes government standards.
But read about what it says, and this is what This is by the government. That's what's scary. This is the government putting this
Yeah,
out, right?
it's the government.
So it's called, and just look at the water quality and what's in the water. It's mind-boggling. And like Cornelia said, I think that's great that you brought that
Lead
up.
and chlorine is still the least of our worries. I mean, if you think about it, we're taking water from Lake Michigan. We filter it, we do whatever we can do with it, but certain things we can't filter. For example, anything pharmaceutical cannot be filtered by our filtration system. So if somebody flushes down some, there you go, some fancy drugs. Yeah, you're getting all that in your water. And the worst part is, like, you don't even have to drink the water. All you need to do is just take a shower in that water and your body will absorb it. And that's the thing with chlorine. You absorb so much water during one shower as if you would just drink a glass of that water. So whatever's in there, it's going into our body. So
So do those shower filters work?
what is it?
You put a shower filter, supposed to,
It,
a filter on your shower?
you can, there's all sorts of filtration systems, but they all filter different things. So if you're looking at a filter, like if we're just talking about drinking water, I know this is a little controversial, but reverse osmosis is probably your best bet for filtering water. Right. It basically strips the water from anything that's not water in there, to the point where it becomes acidic. So then in these systems there is a additional filter that puts minerals back into the water.
But that's only for your general
That's only
use
for drinking
kitchen
water.
sink.
Right.
You're not doing it for the whole house.
Well, I did a whole house filter.
That well, no,
Right.
that you can do the whole house water filter, but he's talking of reverse osmosis, which basically pretty much gets rid of everything in the water, but you can only do that at a point of use. So in one spot.
But you could maybe put one in the upstairs sink or something.
You could.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You have your refrigerator and you have the water that comes from the refrigerator.
Yes.
What kind of filter is that?
So that is a filter that is there for the taste and to remove it, like the most basic things, like chlorine will be removed. Anything else just goes right through.
Right.
So that filter, for example, is the 7th stage of a reverse osmosis filtration system.
But
That is just to remove like whatever else could be giving you a weird flavor.
But going back, what you were saying is if you put a reverse osmosis in your kitchen sink, you could also have that feed the refrigerator.
Oh, that I should.
Because at that point now you get the same water quality in 2 spots.
Now, for the whole house, yes, there are systems that are out there that you connect basically to that lead pipe that's coming into your house, and now your whole house is filtered. Now, it's not filtered to the point of a reverse osmosis where it strips everything, but it removes 90% of the stuff that's in there, like the things that we really worry about.
Okay, how about our cast iron?
If you live in an apartment and you want to use something to filter that kitchen water, I don't know if the reverse osmosis is something you just stick
Mhm.
under
Yeah.
the sink.
It's a very small contained system that goes right under the sink.
Yes.
What's the name of the system you recommend?
Are we supposed to advertise here?
Well, America
Well, they have a
Home
system.
has this one
I mean,
system called.
we have a couple of different systems. The big thing is with reverse osmosis, you could just, if you ever get a chance, unfortunately I didn't bring any of my cards. I can send you some stuff on the best ones that are available, and then obviously you could do your research too. The big thing with reverse osmosis is that you generally want it also to, this may sound weird now, you're stripping all your water of all the, oh, sorry. I keep getting in long-winded conversations, I apologize, I will get to it.
Thank you.
No problem. So what the heck was I talking about?
Reverse
Oh, thank you. Okay, so with reverse osmosis, the problem is, I mean, it's a great thing, it removes everything from the water. But what happens when you remove everything from the water?
No more minerals.
Correct. So now they have reverse osmosis that also puts minerals back into the water that basically keep it from being dead water, because that's what it is if you strip of everything. And so to me, that's not the best thing in the world. So that's why we have reverse osmosis systems that now also put minerals back in.
Does it put fluoride in?
Oh, no. No, you don't, I mean, okay, I understand everyone has their certain feelings. I mean, you go to the dentist, he gives you fluoride treatment. After I did my research on fluoride, scares the living daylights out of me because I partook in all that stuff. I don't think it's the most healthy thing in the world.
I've got another question about that filtration. There's standalone systems called Berkey or something.
Yes.
Have you run into those? What are your thoughts on that?
My wife swears by it. She thinks it's great. Even I can't convince her otherwise. No, it's very good.
What was the question?
She was asking, there's self-contained water systems where you can put, like, you take this big container and it filters the water by itself. And you just put, you take the water from the spigot, fill it up, and it filters it very slowly.
You mean Brita?
Like, no, Brita goes right on to normally it's similar to the Brita, but the Berkeys, they have better filtration system. So I would tell you that that's a good option. If you don't have, you don't mind having a big container on your counter because they take up a little bit of real estate, but it is another way around the problem. Yes.
So the city of Evanston told me last week that they plan on removing all my water from the street so the sidewalk is copper, already done. And in 10 years, within the next 10 years, they will remove the lead from there to my house.
Correct.
For free.
Yes.
Instead of me paying $8,000.
Correct. That's why I'm saying for right. That's correct. So this is something that the government has much concerns about because it is not a healthy thing, and they're finally waking up to the reality that we got to do something. And this is one of the big movements that they've done throughout the country.
What about lead paint?
Lead paint, that's its own animal. If you don't touch it, you're fine, okay? But as soon as you start cutting into walls and so forth, you just have to be really careful. I mean, you just don't want to go to town like I did, yeah.
How do you know if the building has cast iron pipe or steel pipe?
Normally your pipes for water are steel or galvanized, and the drains are cast iron. So it's the drainage is cast iron.
Are they good forever, cast iron?
Nothing's good forever. Unfortunately, cast iron deteriorates at times, and when you go into your home systems, the cast iron is less likely to fail than your galvanized. Because obviously you don't have as much oxygen, you don't have as much corrosive material in there, and it's a little bit more hardy, but it will over time deteriorate in certain spots. You just have to be really careful about watching it. Yeah, it's good. I'm giving you good news, right? It's all fun. But this is the beauty of having an older house, so that you're never bored. Always got something.
Someone's gonna break someday.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about your sewer systems, but that's okay. We'll do that another time.
Like I said, I had a background in health, and one thing that's always so sad is that our generation and the generation after me is living less years. And now they're saying that people in their 30s and 40s, colon cancer was like unheard of. And they had a doctor on the news that said, well, there's some studies that are pointing to it could be some stuff in our food. And I'm like, you think? I mean, all this crap that we put in there, and where your body is constantly taking in, and it is kind of stressful when you're thinking about it and you're hearing about all this stuff, but there is a lot you can do. I mean, knowledge is power. You yourself as a person, it has a certain amount of resilience to these environmental. When you're eating healthy and you're keeping yourself healthy, you're more resilient to these toxins, right? But going into what products are you using in your house? And one thing I asked Cornelius is what can you do with the airflow? And he said, it goes open your windows. I'm like, oh, he goes, nothing beats opening your windows. But the next thing I want him to talk about, and then we'll open this up for questions for anyone who has to, leave. If opening your windows and losing all that efficiency is not in the cards, there are other options, that they have. And this is probably not an accurate picture. I'm going to tell you right now. I tried my best.
You can talk about what
But
it
that's
is.
definitely AI made, right?
Sorry.
But okay, so all these systems that you see here, this is mostly designed for nowadays brand new homes. Like a cookie cutter home that's super insulated, over insulated. We need all these systems to make them livable, to not poison you. Old homes, again, were designed to breathe, and now we have these older homes, and we have contractors that build these homes, go to your home and tell you, you need new windows, you need new insulation, you need to make it more efficient. And yes, you can do that. All these older homes, we can turn them into this, and if you get the right contractor, he will do that for you. He will insulate your attic, your walls, he might do spray foam insulation. You ever heard of that? Yeah. It's good for certain things, but then once you do that, you have to realize the house stopped breathing. Whatever you bring in from outside to your home, meaning yourself, cleaning stuff, that's probably the worst. All the sprays, Windex, all that stuff. If you spray it in your home, where's it going? Where the chemicals are going? They're staying there. You're gonna filter it out while you breathe. So all these systems were designed for new homes to be able to get that stuff out. You buy a new floor, you have to put some, whatever they put on top of it to make it last forever. The glues, the flooring right now, it's not even wood anymore. It's all engineered, compressed wood with a bunch of epoxy stuff. Epoxy is really bad for you. You buy a new cover for a bed sheet, like you said, pillows. It's all plastic, formaldehyde, as a flame retardant. That's the same stuff they put in dead bodies. Okay, it impregnates things. So now what do we do? Well, if you do go the route to be efficient, you want high efficiency boiler, insulate the walls, seal everything off. Now we have to ventilate. So to ventilate, nowadays we have things like an ERV, energy recovery ventilators. It is basically a mechanical way of doing what homes 100 years ago did for free. Which is basically a fan that takes air from inside, dumps it outside, and pulls fresh air in, and constantly keeps displacing the right amount to keep the air fresh in a home. These systems are efficient though. Even though there is a motor running to make it happen, inside there is a core, it's a heat exchanger, that whatever air you're about to dump to the outside, it passes through this heat exchanger, that whatever air comes in through back to the inside, it exchanges its temperature, moisture contents if it needs to, and you're not throwing out 100% of the air that you just heated or you cooled. You can recover about 70 to 80% of that temperature back. So they're pretty efficient. So yeah, going high efficiency on your home, insulating, is a good idea as long as you have the right contractor and they can tell you the side effects of the things that they're going to be doing that you now have to mitigate. Because you will have to mitigate it all. The other thing is, because we were talking about stack effect, your basement, it doesn't know it needs to stop producing water. It just keeps going, and it's going to over-humidify your home, meaning your basement. If you go into your basement and it smells different than your first floor, that is mold spores. That is high content of moisture. And if you see in basements spiders walking around and silverfish every now and then, that's moisture. So how do we get rid of that? Well, another mechanical device. Well, this one also, I see that's AI generated. That's not, they kind of look like this. If you go to Home Depot, you can pick one of those up for like $200 and plug it in, waste money. It doesn't even work. It makes noise, but it doesn't really help your home. To dehumidify a home truly, you do need to buy one that is certified by ASHRAE. The things that you buy from Home Depot sometimes, Menards, Lowe's, they are not up to our standards. They're made somewhere out there, and they have different standards. So if they tell you, oh, it's going to remove 90 pints of water, it might be doing 20 by our standards. So ASHRAE standards are what governs us to produce HVAC equipment. In China, consumer products, different ratings. So they can put whatever they want on those stickers. Just a bunch of promises, so don't waste your money on those. A real dehumidifier, probably like that type of a humidifier that says 90 pints can remove, you're talking about a couple $1,000s. So stuff gets really expensive really quick.
So I'm a little one and I empty it a couple times a day.
Mm.
This much water.
How many pints did it say?
How many pints is this much?
That's like a gallon. How many pints in a
Oh, it's more
gallon?
than a gallon.
8.
It's more than a gallon.
So a couple times you're removing about 16 pints. They probably promised you about 50 to 70 on the box. And then this is basically where
Take out at least that much?
it is removed. So yeah, so they do something. They do remove some humidity, which is good, then better than anything, right?
Somebody
But
told me that they told them not to use the base because it draws the moisture up from the floor. Under up there.
and yeah, we have to keep them in the basement. Why? Because yeah, moisture just comes from the basement, from the walls. They're constantly in the ground, which the ground is constantly wet, and you're gonna be just wicking all that into the home.
And by the way, just so one thing I want to make sure that you know, moisture is going to try to equalize everywhere it can. In other words, if you have a drier area and you have a more moist area, it's going to travel. You know, you can do that like in winter when you're taking a shower. You come out and you open up the door, and that moisture just goes to all the other rooms that are next to you, and it will over time essentially get throughout the house. But again, you're only creating so much moisture. So what Cornelius is saying is that in your case, you may need a bigger dehumidifier than what you have, because that's only taking a little lip of moisture out of the air, and you may need something more powerful. And there are systems out there that do a much better job of creating a more, like I said, what's the point of spending money if you're not going to get your desired effect? Because that's the key. Yes, you may save some money sometimes, but if it's not going to give you what you want, why do it? So all we're trying to say is there are ways of designing moisture removal systems in your home to ensure that you get all the moisture out of your home. And again, some of you don't have any problems with moisture. Yes?
But I think you need a certain amount of moisture. You need to find a balance.
Right.
And one of the things I want to point out is that some houses may not have been treated properly around the foundation walls on the outside to wick away water so it's not pressing on the foundation walls. So there are other ways to handle that. And the other thing I just wanted to point out is that the stack effect is not just from a cool basement up, but it's opening the windows to garden level to let the cool air at night come in, flush out the house, realize in the morning the house is cooler. I think we've gotten into a cultural situation where generations are just used to having the systems on, windows sealed,
You're right.
and not utilizing
You're correct.
passive techniques. And we're in such a wonderful climate, you know, with screened-in porches, you can throw the doors open. I mean,
Absolutely.
but we don't utilize the swing seasons
You're right.
efficiently to not have to run a fan.
You're right. And I would tell you that in most of the older homes, okay, you're generally not going to have a huge moisture problem, okay? But sometimes, based upon the environment, how much water you get down in the basement, all those factors are important, but especially this is a bigger problem when the house is really tight. Because there's no way to get that moisture out of the house now, and so now we need a mechanism to get the moisture out.
So yeah, all I'm trying to do is give you a warning. If you do decide to go the efficient route, you know, hey, insulate and windows and all this to save a little bit on gas, you have to take in consideration how this house was built and what it was designed to do. Right now, when we're building homes, there is governing bodies that make you do this so we don't poison ourselves in these homes, in these super insulated homes, or we don't grow mold. For older homes, when you're doing remodeling, somebody comes in and they're going to install what they know they know. They have, it's, you know, like Vicky told me today morning that old saying, if If you only have a hammer, everything is a nail, right? If you know how to do one thing, install fire-breathing dragons, which is just basically basic forced air furnaces, that's all you're gonna do. So you have to watch out as a homeowner of older homes to protect yourself from contractors that are just trying to sell you the next thing. Because they'll put in a system they know, but they don't really know the side effects of it. Like, this is fine on brand new builds. Like, all the super sealing of a home, it's okay because there is a governing body that says you need some sort of dehumidification. This is code now in brand new builds, the heat recovery ventilators of some sort. You need to ventilate your home, right? So if you build a tight home, you need to ventilate it. But for you, when you have an older home, you have to pay attention to that when somebody's just trying to sell you a system.
This is pretty much the end of our talk, but I do want you to mention Remy Halo. Just talk about things just because I think it's so cool. And then just a couple minutes that we're gonna, end for questions. But ultimately, we hope that you guys really enjoyed this, that it was educational, informative, and kind of gets you thinking, even if you're not gonna be changing things in your house, thinking about opening your windows and getting out and getting fresh air. If you guys are leaving at any point, and stick around for questions, I just want to say this because I know a few people left. We made, speaking of healthy things, a little seed pack with some original Chicago seeds. We call it the original Chicago garden. There are some native plants in there, and then there are some that are just really great pollinators for the neighbor, the area. If you want to take a picture of what's in it, and you want to take a seed pack with you, we would love for you to have that. And I always give these out. These are jar openers. And they are very good jar openers. And they are clutch for anyone in your kitchen. So these are for you guys. And we hope that you enjoyed this talk. And I'm going to open it up for any other questions.
We didn't talk about food.
We will talk about that. Yes.